Got to give it up to you, Pablo. There is like 47 things that you have to do when we start one of these things, and I just get to sit here. I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, I gotta just let you look good, and I'll handle all this stuff, man. We gotta stay in our lanes, man. If I was working with those goods, then it'd be different, right? We are live on Facebook, our weekly session of Q&A with JWB co-founder Greg Cohen. I am the host of the Not Your Average Investor show that we have been evolving over the past couple of weeks now that we're in this Corona economy, right? We are going harder into education. We are leaning into the community. Greg is showing up on a weekly basis inside of every morning inside the Facebook group, giving up some great updates, showing some beautiful sights. I saw the beach today. Greg, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. And for those that don't know, Pablo and I are actually running in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, we prepare for this show. We really want to bring a lot of value to guys. And even pre-dawn, we're out there running, talking. We came up with like 5-6 great ideas this morning, and then got to, watch the sunrise there. It's pretty awesome. Social distancing, of course, but running is something you can do 6 feet apart. So
definitely. I miss the high five and the bro hug when I see you, but I'm willing to go through that in order to get our exercise in. I feel like we're being shoe dogs, right? Like we're totally
Great book. For those of you who want a good read Shoe Dog. It's going to inspire you, especially if you're running pre-dawn, by the way. Then you just feel like you're Phil Knight. He's the creator of Nike and who the memoirs of creating Nike. So
yeah, the story of Nike. It's great. So a little bit of housekeeping as we get started, right? This is to discuss anything JWB, any kind of Q&A that you have. We ask that you put it in the question box of the webinar so that way we can keep best track of it. Lee, you're really good at that. You've been doing that dutifully. I appreciate that. If you want to chat and interact, if you're in the Facebook group, you can chat or interact, or you can just join us on the Zoom call. If you want to come in and pose questions, you can also interact with each other in the chat of the Zoom call as well. And if you are not in our group yet, right? I see most of the people here are in our group yet, but if you're not in our Facebook group, go to jwbrealestatecapital.com/group, and that'll direct you to our Facebook group. It is our little cool club where we all get to hang out and post different things about the economy, and Greg goes live in there in the mornings, and we have a nice little thing going, and we'd love to have that group grow. We have over 1,000 members and a really, really nice interaction. We want to connect people to each other. I also want to encourage anybody that wants to book a call with JWB. It's very easy. You go to chatwithjwb.com. If anything that we're saying is nudging you in the direction of like really wanting some personalized attention to think about if you're ready for a new rental property. And I also want to bring up the mortgage guarantee that you guys got going on as far as guaranteeing your mortgage payment for the first 6 months of any new property that is bought right now and this month in order to alleviate some of the fears around what's going on here in the coronavirus. But we're going to get into all of that, aren't we, Greg?
We are, my friend.
Yeah.
You're such a good housekeeper.
I'm not gonna make the obvious joke there. So,
wasn't going there.
Speaking of housekeeping, you started this week. You talked about how you had your clients only call on Mondays, and you spoke about how you're closing on houses inside that call, right? You want to kind of just bring everybody up to speed there on how closings are happening right now in this time of social distancing and what we got to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, people take things for granted and people assume the worst when we are all dealing with coronavirus. So we have been getting questions about things that I took for granted that people knew. And I think it's really important that we kind of set the stage and start from sort of a baseline of what can you do in coronavirus time. So on the client only call, we talked about operations, and a couple of the questions were, can I still buy a property in coronavirus time? And at first glance, I was like, oh, well, this is what we're doing every day. This is what our clients are doing every day. But what a thoughtful question, because now we're hearing about statewide shelter in place or safer at home ordinances. What does that mean for the county? And how do you close on a property during coronavirus time if your courthouse is not filing the deeds, right? So the simple answer is yes, we are still buying. Yes, you can still buy. You can buy investment properties with JWB. Generally speaking, you can still buy investment properties outside of JWB. It's not like we have a corner on the market here, being able to do real estate in Jacksonville. It is the same process as it was before. The main thing to consider is anytime you buy a property, you want to get what's called title insurance. Title insurance protects the title of the property to make sure that there's no claims on it that otherwise would become a liability for you, right? If you bought a house and somebody had a $50,000 claim on it prior to you buying it, you want to make sure that you're not going to be left holding the bag for that. And so the big question is, how do you get title insurance in a time like this when maybe the courthouse is not operating? The courthouse in Jacksonville is operating, but it might not be in your area, right? Well, what's happening is you're still able to get title insurance, which is why everybody is still buying right now, right? It's why clients are able to buy. It's why JWB is still buying. You're able to get title insurance. I would not recommend buying something if you don't get title insurance, but you can. And so right now, courthouses may be down, or they may not be filing these deeds. And generally speaking, pre-coronavirus, you had to actually file the deed for a title insurance company to give you title insurance. And you had to record the deed. And so what's happening is right now courthouses are going towards e-filing, which is something they should have done a long time ago. But even in the case that they are shut down and they're not filing and not recording the deeds through e-recording, title insurance companies are doing something that basically allows for a gap in time. They are still insuring something even if it's not recorded that day. It creates no additional risk for you as a buyer. It's sort of like a little bit of gap insurance, you would call it. But the main point here is there's no change to how you buy a property here in Jacksonville, and that's why we're able to do it.
Cool. Is that gap insurance, is that an added cost? Is that anything like that? Or is it just kind of what they're doing, cost of doing business? Is that an added closing cost?
It is not an added closing cost. It is the same process for you and the same cost prior to coronavirus. It is just they're taking a little bit of additional risk as a title insurance company, you would say, in light of coronavirus. And they're doing this because what other choice do they have, right? They need to make money and sell title insurance. So, but there's no change to you and no additional cost.
Simple enough. I'm going to talk about what Lee put here in the Q&A. Lee, thank you as always for your awesome contributions. It's so cool that you show up to our calls, right? We love having the regular interaction with the people that come to all of our calls. It's awesome, right? And he talked about your post inside the group today, the live that you did. So can you kind of frame it first before I make this comment? Because I think it's going to lead to an interesting discussion about what you shared today. Absolutely. So I woke up this morning so fired up because I was sitting down, I'm writing a new piece for a presentation I'm going to be doing, and it's going to sort of be the basis of this talk that I'm going to be giving. And, my basic thought here is that, people do want to invest in real estate, but they just, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to do it to the extent that they want. And so have you ever sat down and when you have something in mind and you do like one Google search and up pops like an incredible amount of very convincing, like credible stats and data that support your argument? Has it ever happened to you, Pablo? Every once in a while. It's like the Google gods are like shining on you, right? So that was my experience. I got up at 4:45 this morning when I was doing this, and I was so fired up. If you can imagine me at my desk at 4:45 seeing this. So I ran up across a Gallup poll. So they polled ton of Americans and they asked them, what do you believe the best long-term investment will be? And they asked between real estate, stocks, bonds, and I think savings accounts. And real estate was the number one choice. 35% chose real estate as the best long-term investment. I think it was 27% for stocks. Bonds, I remember, because only 5 to 7% of people chose bonds as the best investment out there. So then, in a separate poll, they asked Americans, what investments do you own?
And it was shocking to me. 86% of Americans own stocks. 48% of Americans own bonds, even though 5 to 7% think they're the best. 48% of people own bonds, and only 30% of Americans own real estate investments. And to me, that is just like the essence of what I have believed for so long, which is that you don't have to sell people on real estate. People already get it. They know it's a great investment option out there. You just have to make it accessible for them, right? You have to give the people what they want, right? You have to make real estate able to be accomplished by somebody who is a very busy professional or somebody who lives in a market that might not be good for rental properties or whatnot. And so that was the stats that I pulled this morning. It's gotten a tremendous feedback. We've already had over 20 comments from that. That's the most, topical responses we've gotten on any of my morning walk and talks. So, not sure where the question's going for Lee on that one, but that was really the data that I saw.
Well, he brought up a really interesting thing, right? Of maybe why the symptom, why this symptom is there, what the cause might be. So Lee writes, Greg, your walk and thought generated some personal thoughts on the subject of stocks and real estate investing and why everyone knows the best return on investment is real estate investment. In my situation, I retired after 22 years and established a healthy 401k investing portfolio. Our financial planner called to discuss how I wanted to invest my money in retirement. He did not talk about real estate investments. I think most people that retire are in that situation. It was not until my wife and I, in my retirement state, should get into real estate investment. Okay, I guess he didn't realize in their retirement state that they decided that they should get into real estate investment. They found out about JWB and were pleased to set up a solo 401k LLC to create a vehicle in which to invest in turnkey real estate property. We came down to Jacksonville, Florida to visit JWB Operations Center and came away knowing we made the right choice with turnkey real estate solution provider. So, Lee is saying that the marketplace is not making it available to people, right? If your financial planner who is talking to you about your investments and where to place them can't talk real estate, then of course, then people, even though they know it's good for them, even though they want to, they think it's difficult, right?
Exactly. It comes down to ease of use is the big reason. I mean, that's the thing that makes sense to me. There's certainly some other obstacles, right? Real estate's more illiquid. Maybe there's a higher cost to get into real estate than stocks. Of course, there's some other things, but at the end of the day, there shouldn't be a disparity where 35% of the population believes it's the best and 27% believe stocks are the best, but 86% of the US investing world has stocks and only 30% have real estate, right? Ease of use is the biggest reason. It's just so easy, and the path of least resistance is what most people follow and investors follow, and that's why they go into the stock market. And I just wanted to highlight Lee and his wife who came down, and I got to meet them in Vegas when we were speaking in December of last year. Awesome couple, and what an incredible decision that they made, because, and I'm not sure what exactly Lee was investing in before, but I imagine that money that has now gone into rental properties would have been affected by the stock market crash, right, that we've seen, right? A credit to Lee for sitting down, thinking about this, not just doing what the path of least resistance would say and following that financial advisor, right? Because if he had made that decision, it would be a much different story than where his money is right now. And I'm so happy for Lee and his wife.
Totally. Says a lot. I got to meet Lee too. He was awesome. Gave the best testimonial I've ever seen, as you see by the way that he writes them and everything like that. So, all right. So then let's go on to, well, what about the idea that I could see that being part of the problem, right? Like, I mean, I could see that being a big part of the problem, the friction that is investing in real estate. There's also got to be something attributed to the fact that you can invest in stocks with $100. You can't really invest in real estate with $100, right? Like you got to have 25 to 50 grand or something like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are more barriers to entry, especially from a financial perspective into real estate, specifically rental properties is what we're talking about. We're We're not following those late night infomercials of no money down deals and how to do all of that, right? We're talking to folks that that are looking for this to be passive. So you're going to have a higher barrier of entry to doing this, but it might not be as ominous as you may think, right? You know, you're going to need more than $100 to invest in rental properties, but you might already have buckets of money that you're using in different places that could actually be used for property investing. And, you know, Paulo, you and I have sort of talked about, you know, 401ks. Lee just talked about a solo 401k, where if you have some specific questions on investment vehicles, you should talk to our team. You should go to chatwithjwb.com, set up a personalized call. We can talk about that solo 401k and how it can help you. IRAs, these are vehicles that you may have in the stock market. You may have $50,000, $100,000, whatever the number is in the stock market. Many people don't know you can use those funds to purchase rental properties. You can create diversification for yourself. So there are a number of other strategies that you may already have access to. So you shouldn't just assume that, man, it's going to take me 10 years to save up $50,000 or $100,000. I'm 10 years away from investing in rental properties. You shouldn't have that mindset. There's a lot of things that you can do to speed that up.
Yeah, that was a really big eye opener for me, getting involved with this project and getting so intimate with how people are doing this stuff. And I totally echo what Lee just put in the comments, which is he puts, I really feel it's an obligation to tell people about JWB. Like I also feel to a certain extent, like I don't shut up about it too, because it's so mind blowing to me. And I'm not kidding when I say that 3 years ago, I was the guy walking around Miami saying, I don't think I'm ever going to invest in real estate ever in my life. You know, because of that, right? Like I lived in this overpriced market. It didn't make sense to me there. So the idea of investing anywhere else was very foreign. You know, so I'm really grateful about it too. But yeah, it's really interesting to know that you can take the things that there's 50 guys knocking down my door from Northwestern Mutual and whatever, trying to sell me a life insurance product and managing my IRA from an old 401k. And there's 1, 2, 3 companies out there that can do what JWB is doing, of turning that stuff that I worked on in my 20s and early 30s into a rental income property, which you have taught me is a ridiculously awesome investment class. So
it's awesome to see the transformation. I mean, I went through the same transformation that we're all talking about right here, that you went through from 3 years ago, walking around in Miami saying you're never going to invest in real estate till now, right? I went through the same transformation when I came out of school when I was 20, 22 years old. I never would have thought I'd be investing in real estate. My family doesn't invest in real estate, right? It was so far away. I was in corporate America. I was working my way up the corporate ladder, right? That's what I was going to do. I was going to put money into my 401k. It's what I did when I got there. I chose randomly the 10 stocks that it should go in because I had 10 choices. And then I turned my mind off, right? And then, you know, life as it would have it blessed me with reading a great book, with finding great mentors, with finding great business partners, with finding a great team. And here I am now. And it's hard to relate to that person that was there before. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's like taking the red pill in the Matrix, right? So let's talk about something that's more on people's mind, right? Like I could obviously gush about this for a while. Let's talk about a little bit more what you are. We've gotten some pretty good feedback in the last week or so. One from potential investors and one from your tenants, right? And a lot of the same questions are popping up about what are the numbers on rent payments and how are you able to collect rents during this time of coronavirus? Can you kind of give us a little primer on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Very topical question right now. I think it's the question on everybody's mind, right? Now, to give it some perspective, you come into different asset classes, and one of the things historically people bank on as far as being a consistent producer is the ability to collect rent, right? The ability to produce cash flow from rental income over decades now is known to be a consistent asset class. But now you've got coronavirus thrown in and people are scared, right? We're hearing about unemployment skyrocketing, right? Over 10 million unemployment filings, right? We're concerned because people can't work, right? And now we're concerned, what does that mean for rent collection, right? And it's you know, when the sky is falling around you, you forget what your floor is, right? You forget that there are certain things that that you can count on. And the paying for housing is something that has historically been very consistent. So, so people were really, really scared. What I shared with folks when this happened, we can go back to the videos that you and I did when this whole thing broke, is I said, in the very short run, you should expect a short-term temporary loss of rental income, because that was the best thing that I knew. And that's how I thought about my own properties, right? The extent to what that would be depended on a lot of factors. The fact that, you know, how deep our social distancing would go, right? It was going to be affected by the stimulus, which we didn't have in place at that point too, right? But people were concerned. Well, now we have some data. So what I shared on the client only call was real data of actually what we've been collecting in rent. And this isn't all the way through April. We're here, it's April 9th right now. And I typically wouldn't share that data until the month was over, because I like to give like solid numbers that you can compare to. But I think in this environment, full transparency, full, you know, data, the earliest that you have it is helpful, right? And what you're seeing is the floor is not that low for rental properties, for rent collection. I'll give you some real data right now. All right, so before the first of the month, we always track how much rent have we collected for that next month, okay? Well, actually, before I go there, I should give a little bit more perspective. For March, right, we got all of March done. All of rent has been collected for March. And we know that the entire world changed in March for our residents. So what was the impact of rent collection when the world changed in March? Now, most people paid their rent on the 1st, or right around there. So the world changed after that. But there was still a lot of rent to be collected for the rest of the month while the world was in flux. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And a question, you guys collect everybody's rent on the 1st, or does it have to do with the day that they moved in?
Rent is always due on the 1st.
Okay.
No matter what day you move in.
Okay.
Yeah. So for March, we ended March just like we have ended our normal rent collection, right? Average for JWB is right around 98%. We were at 98% for March rent collected, which I thought was a great sign, right? Now we track how much did we collect prior to April 1st for April rent as an early indicator for, is the sky falling, or do we have a relatively normal floor for rent collection? Typically, we're going to collect between 15 to 20% of rent before the 1st of the month. For that next month, we collected 17% in March for April, right where we would be normal, okay? Then we track how much rent have we collected at different points in the month, right? For us, by the 6th of April, we had collected 70% of rent. That is exactly where our normal numbers are, right? We've collected over $2.5 million of rent. And we've done this in a way that we're leading with compassion with our residents, right? It is more important in a time like this to be compassionate than it is to maximize your return. That is just real right now. And we're still able to collect $2.5 million of rent from our residents, which is 70%. So that's an indicator. So saying in March, you know, by the 6th of March, we had collected right around 70% and we ended with 98%. By the end of April 6th, we had collected 70%. Now, we still have a long way to go in April, and there's a lot of factors. So I don't want this to come across like I think rent collection is going to be 98% in April. I don't think it's going to be 98% in April. I think it's going to be lower, which is exactly what we said early on. But I want people to realize that there's a floor here, right? People are paying for housing. It is not, you can't collect any rent out there. You do it with compassion. We're going to expect a short-term temporary loss of rental income. But this is still a consistent asset class. And I think people need to know that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I have spoken a little bit about this, right? But there's kind of like a hierarchy of what you spend your money on. One is feed your family. Two is put your roof over your head, right? So as long as you got any kind of money coming in, it's going to go to those two things in order. And maybe they haven't felt the effect of the layoffs fully, but then there's also this incentives package, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're trying to think, is this a projection for how future rent is going to be coming in? I think it's still a little bit too early for me to give like future projections. Things change so much right now, but here's what I do know. People are filing for, over 10 million people have filed for unemployment the last 2 weeks. right? So generally their income, they just got fired, unfortunately, became unemployed, and they usually get some residual income for a couple of weeks. So that helped with April rent collection, right? But the big thing is how this unemployment filing, how the money is going to work for their unemployment filing is going to have a direct positive impact on their ability to pay rent in the future, in my opinion. So the way the unemployment filings work typically is there's a max amount that you can file for in each state that you will be able to earn on a weekly basis. And it's typically around 40 to 60% of what your typical earnings would be. So if you go on unemployment, you're going to earn about 40 to 60%. In the state of Florida, it's a max payout of $275 a week. Pre-coronavirus, that's what you would earn. Now the government, because they realize they want to keep people whole, they want the same amount of income coming in for somebody during coronavirus as when they were working, even if they're unemployed, because they want people to be able to pay their rent and to be able to pay their mortgage and to keep them in their house. So what the government did is they added an additional $600 per week in unemployment for the first 4 months of unemployment. So there's a very high likelihood that your residents, if they are unemployed, are going to be earning the same amount that they earned before. You could even make an argument sometimes they actually will earn more being on unemployment during this coronavirus crisis. And the government had to do this because they need to make sure people can stay in their homes, and they did not want to give people an incentive to go out and try to look for work. Because if you're only earning half of what you earned before, to save your house, you were going to go outside and you were going to try to find work, right? They had to remove that. So what this is really, this is a stimulus package that of all the asset classes, it's helping rental property investors the most because the money is directly going to those folks so that they can save their living situations. So it's one factor amongst a number of factors as far as how rent collection will work in the future. Pablo, and my commitment to you is that we're going to keep you posted with real-time, transparent updates. But overall, if you had told me that we would be earning 70% of rent collection by April 6th, I would have thought that is a huge win because I was expecting worse. I'm conservative.
Excellent. Yeah, I thought that was important, right? You know, Lee puts, we got a couple of cool comments here in the chat and in the Q&A. Marilyn Cotterman writes, Roths are wonderful use for investing in real estate. Sounds like it to me. I'm about to explore that option for sure. Tonica Gherkin writes, I agree. JWB makes you so comfortable. You'll take that leap of faith. Lee writes of himself in third person, says, Lee says for answering or talking to my comments today. And he also wrote in the Q&A, it was refreshing to hear about the tenant's ability to pay. I was informed by Ashley that we have a tenant that will be late, and that was fine. Your team is doing a great job informing the owners to the situation with all tenants. It's amazing. And I wanted to bring up, right now, because we're talking about this, I think it's very germane to the mortgage guarantee that you have put on the table for right now. Do you want to kind of cover it? Or do you want
I think that kind of closes the loop, right? Folks have asked me, hey, Greg, is it still a good time to buy rental properties right now? Are you still buying yourself? And my answer is yes to both of those. And how can I do that when I'm just telling you all, hey, listen, you may see a short-term temporary loss of rental income due to coronavirus? Well, the reason that I'm confident, and I speak from the heart when I tell you that you should, if your plan is to continue to buy rental properties, you should continue with that plan, is because JWB is actually doing what's called a mortgage payment guarantee. And for everybody who is continuing their plan, continuing to invest, continuing to buy rental properties according with their goals, what JWB is taking that potential, if a resident can't pay their rent for whatever reason, we're taking that risk off the table for you. We make a payment to our owners that's equal to whatever their monthly mortgage payment would be, and it removes the possibility of negative cash flow. And we do this for a full 6 months. And so we're doing this, we're offering this for all properties that are put under contract this month. So they do need to be put under contract through April 30th. And for those who haven't been clients so far, it usually takes a couple of weeks to bring you on board, to do it the right way, to set the proper expectations, to do the property selection. So the time, if you are interested in that and taking advantage of that, the time to schedule is now or in the very near future. And that really takes that that kind of closes the loop on why it still makes sense. Even if we have some short-term temporary disruption, it still makes sense to continue to move forward with rental properties because you're not going to be stuck in a negative cash flow situation with JWB.
Cool. And I also wanted to say that if you want to do that, go to chatwithjwb.com. You know, that's an easy URL to remember, chatwithjwb.com. You can set up an appointment right there. And more so, and Miriam, I'm about to get to your question, and Daryl, I'm about to get to your question. We're going to go a little bit over, but as long as you're okay with that, Greg, you got a little bit of extra time?
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to say that next week on Tuesday, we're talking about the other side of that equation. We're talking about, is there upside to sitting it out a little while, sitting on the sidelines? You got some cash that you're thinking about investing. Is there any upside to waiting out a month, 2 months with that cash in pocket? We're going to break down those numbers. Greg and I have been talking about it in depth lately, and we're coming up with some pretty interesting observations. So we're going to do a deep dive into that on our Tuesday educational call. You can register for that. I put the link here in the chat, but I can repost it again. You can register for that with us and join us on a Zoom call again. And it'll be another half an hour, Tuesday, 12:30 to 1. And would love to see everybody there. So I want to get to Miriam in a second. Daryl Thomas Jr. in the Facebook group asks, where do you get your data from, right? And I clarified with him, I know that our rental data comes from JWB internally, historical data,
yes.
Right? Where did you get the, he said any data referred to in this Q&A. So I assume the other data is the stats on investing. Do you remember where you got that from?
Yeah, I'll post the link right after we get off the live here. It's a Gallup poll that was done at 2 different times. Happy to post the link for you guys to see there.
Cool. And Miriam Costales says, can my brother who lives overseas invest his money in your company by becoming a lender? I told him about the 10% interest earnings, and he's very interested. He could not believe me that you guys pay that much of a high interest. I would like to help him, but not sure if he is eligible to invest in the USA due to the fact that he's not a U.S. citizen or resident and does not have a social security number. Please advise.
Yes, great question. Nice to hear from you, Miriam. Yes, overseas investors can invest in both rental properties and can do private lending with JWB. We actually serve clients that live in 13 different countries across the world, and they all invest here in Jacksonville, either on rental properties or private lending. So what I would recommend is go to chatwithjwb.com and just schedule a time to speak with our team. Or we can certainly reach back out with you if you'll give us your information here one way or another. We'll make sure that we reach back out to you.
Super. That's it for today. I want to thank everybody that joined us. Oh, Tonica writes 13 countries. That's epic. I agree. 13 countries is pretty epic. I want to thank everybody that joined us today. Oh, I'm sorry, Greg, what were you saying?
Well, hopefully it's 14. I'm not sure which country Miriam's from, but that would be great. We always get really excited when we add a new state or we add a new country. At last count, we're at 43 different states and 13 countries. We're really trying to get to all 50. So if anybody's in like Sheboygan somewhere, I don't know if we have Wisconsin yet, but we're looking for very obscure places that people live.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Listen, we still have 14 people with us. We still have 2 more people in the Facebook group. I want to thank everybody for being here for so long, right? Daryl Thomas in the Facebook group, Clyde Chang, Donna Nolasco, Everett Shapiro. Everett's also another regular we're seeing a lot. Pop, we love seeing you. Jared Ash, Joseph Bio, Ken, Lee Bishop, Marilyn Cotterman, Mediatrix Garcia, Michael Drew, Miriam Costales, Paul McNally, Tara Klein, Tonica Gherkin. I think it's amazing that you all spend a half an hour with us in the middle of your day. It tells us that we are spending good time here, giving out good information, that you value it. We love nurturing the relationship. Keep the questions coming. If anybody that I just said is not in our Facebook group, please join our Facebook group, jwbrealestatecapital.com/group. That's where the cool kids hang out. We know that you're the cool kids, right? So let's do it. And if you want to set up an appointment, chatwithjwb.com. And thanks for being here, Greg. It's always a pleasure to spend some time getting learned on by you, man.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate everybody who is with us. I just wanted to share with everybody, I know how difficult it is to have an audience of one, right? When we were starting out, 15 years ago, I was trying to get anybody to listen to me, right? Anybody who wasn't related to me. And it was like one person for so long. And so the fact that we have a group of, 15, 20, 30, 40 people that show up on these calls means the world to Pablo and to me. So thank you all. Hope you guys are just really enjoying this as much as we are. And we'll catch you next Thursday. Well, we'll catch you next Tuesday for that topic that we just shared. And then next Thursday again for the live Q&A. So appreciate all of you.
See ya.